Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open in the prehistoric town of Bedrock where Highway 1 is currently closed due to lava. 4,000 cave people live together with pet dinosaurs using them as various multi-tools and small appliances.
This job sucks.
At Mr. Slate's mining company the workers use Brontosaurus as construction equipment to haul around large boulders. An executive Cliff Vandercave is planning to swindle the company's fortune and flee with his attractive assistant. Miss Sharon Stone only cares about the money and agrees that all they need is a simple-minded fall guy to complete their scheme. Meanwhile, the Brontocrane operator Fred just finished work leading into a live-action version of the original Flintstones intro. Clocking out with the Stegosaurus, Fred drives his foot-powered Flintmobile home, which is how all vehicles without a pulse operate. He brings his family to a drive-in theater before a viewing of Star Wars directed by George Lucas and produced by Universal. Driving home from the quarry the next day we meet Fred's best friend, neighbor and work colleague Barney Rubble. He thanks Fred for lending him a few clams, which is Bedrock's currency, and Fred knocks down his own front door upon returning home.
Wilma, I'm home!
The family's pet Snorkosaurus Dino pounces on him like an untrained dog while Fred's wife Wilma welcomes him home. Once she's repaired the door and Pebbles says hello to her dad, he puts his dirty feet up to read the slab of news. Wilma confronts him about the missing money, so Fred tries to distract her by unclogging the garbage disposal Pigosaurus. He eventually confesses to lending the money to the Rubbles, but she isn't mad when he says that it's for them to adopt a child. She isn't happy, however, to hear that some of it went to a new bowling ball, but the Water Buffaloes just made the finals. The following morning they visit the adoption agency where Betty meets her new son, who's primitive even for this bunch. He's a young cave boy who was raised by wild mastodons and can only pronounce his own name Bam Bam, but a mammal's a mammal. Wilma's camera sets him off and Bam bonks Dad on the head before fleeing out the window and running through Bedrock. He's captured off screen and made to take a bath before receiving a haircut and new set of clothes, making him a member of the Rubble family. Barney and Betty soon discover that Bam Bam is super strong and we're given a quick montage showing the feats he's capable of. That night Fred and Barney attend the Bowl-O-Rama where the Water Buffaloes are just one strike away from defeating the missing links. Frederick Twinkletoes Flintstone uses his unusual technique to land the winning strike and his team celebrate with a giant mug of lava juice. Barney gives an emotional speech about how much Fred means to him and promises to pay him back someday for the loan. When sneaking home with his trophy in hand, Fred uses a treat to distract Dino but slips on Pebbles' toy car, waking the whole house. He's disturbed to discover that his mother-in-law Pearl Slaghoople has come to visit, as she doesn't like Fred and thinks he's only good for shade. This is a woman who sacrificed her own son Jerry so that Wilma could marry Elliot Firestone, the man who invented the wheel. Instead, she chose Fred, who vows that one day he will be somebody important and Wilma will get to live in luxury like she deserves. When going to bed, Fred throws the family's Sabretooth outside with the empty milk bottle, but Baby Puss leaps back in through the window. The next day during their lunch break, Vandercave announces a test with the highest score becoming the company's new vice president. The more inquisitive workers are told to hold any questions for afterwards, while Fred sees this as his opportunity to crawl out of the primordial ooze. However, when it begins, Barney easily fills out every question, and so does the ape for that matter, but Fred gets every answer wrong. Barney brings both their answer slabs up to Vandercave but sees how terrible Fred did, so switches their envelopes as his way to pay back the money. Vandercave finds his Patsy, so gives the surprising announcement that Fred Flintstone is the smartest among them and is now a vice president. He sets his alarm early the next day and wakes up in a chipper mood since he'll finally get to afford Wilma the life she deserves. On Fred's first day at his new job, he wears his brightest red tie and full-body zebra loincloth to make his way to the head offices. He tells Barney that he won't be one of those people who makes it big and then forgets about his friends, but for now needs a small loan of 1 clam. Vandercave shows Fred to his new luxurious office complete with shiny new nameplate and introduces him to his secretary Sharon. She's only here to seduce their Patsy into thinking he's in charge before Miss Stone makes the finishing touches on a forged document. Vandercave wants to see the new VP's willingness to follow orders, so asks him to fire Barney for getting the lowest score on the test. Fred reluctantly agrees since his own job is on the line, but the Rubbles have put together a surprise party to celebrate his promotion. Wilma's mother acts like a completely different person now that her son-in-law is rolling in Clam, but Fred relents and fires Barney in front of everyone. The friend feels more relieved than upset because he's worked in that quarry his whole life and doesn't reveal that he switched the test. In the morning, Wilma is out shopping with Betty, but Bam Bam destroys a display stand and the Rubbles have to pay for the damages. The cashier calmly tells Betty that her credit slab is declined, so she fears that they might lose her child once the adoption agency finds out. Just then there's a pterodactyl warning, so the whole town clears out as the creature that usually ferries passengers drops a massive deuce on Bedrock. Fred attends a meeting with Mr. Slade and other executives where Vandercave unveils a model of the quarry and his plan to automate production. What some call mad he calls a steam-powered conveyor belt that puts most of the people out of a job and living inside small modular housing units. Fred then talks to his well-spoken dictabird, which is basically another assistant giving him tips on what he should and shouldn't do. Sharon enters with the forged documents for Fred to sign, but he tries to read them over instead of just taking her word for it. She throws her coconuts in his face to distract him from the slabs and probably would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for that pesky Wilma. After an awkward introduction between the ladies, Wilma announces that the Rubbles will be staying with them until getting back on their feet. Pebbles makes best friends with Bam Bam. The wives enjoy each other's company, and Fred makes Barney compete with Dino for meals. At work the next day, Fred is looking over the model and accidentally breaks it when Stone enters to grab some documents. She plays dumb, but Fred gives her credit for being smarter than she looks and discusses how much he loves his wife. Sharon begins having second thoughts and tells Vandercave that they should call the whole thing off, but he thinks Fred just needs a bigger incentive. He gives him a large bonus and tells him to go on a spending spree, leading to the Flintstones becoming the pretentious douchebags who they once hated. They squander their new money on a car and remodeling the house and toss out the old dishwasher to replace him with a new Pigasaur spousal. Barney goes through various methods of work, including an attendant at a gas station and a crash test dummy that's rolled into a wall. One day Vandercave delivers a stack of slabs to Fred to sign that he promises is only for the workers' holidays. Despite the Sentient office equipment's warnings, Fred's in a hurry to leave, so chisels away before taking Wilma to an expensive restaurant called Caveman on the Green. They sit with Betty for dinner while Barney waits on them until seeing on the news that Fred fired every employee at the company. He confronts him, but Fred didn't realize and claims that the Rubbles are just jealous of their wealth and fancy new stuff. They argue and Barney reveals that he switched the tests before punching the dumbest employee at the company in the face and proudly leaving. The youngest Rubble packs up the family's belongings and they move out to live off the land, competing with dinosaurs for their eggs. Wilma is shocked at what they've become, so destroys all of their material possessions, then takes Pebbles and Dino to go live with her mother. Fred's left all by himself as everyone hates him, including all of the ex-workers who angrily gather at the office the next day. It's now when Vandercave reveals his true intentions and has called the police on Fred for embezzling the company's money. With all the clams the Flintstones spent in recent days, it doesn't look good for his innocence, so Fred becomes a fugitive on the run. He takes refuge in a homeless camp wearing a fake beard and mustache so that his former colleagues don't recognize him. Unfortunately, his retired dishwasher has fallen on hard times and recognizes him through the otherwise infallible disguise. The unemployed mob chase him down the street into the town center, and Fred is eventually captured by the other half of the known world. Bedrock are about to kill him when Barney pulls up working as a snow cone salesman and is dumb enough to say this was all his fault.
I got cherry?
The crowd grab him and it gets dark as they're about to straight up lynch both of them in the middle of the town from a tree. Fred apologizes for everything and says that he couldn't ask for a better friend to be hung beside before they hug it out, kind of. During this time, Wilma and the Slag have a visit from Betty and Bam Bam, who devise a plan to save their husbands. First thing is to clear Fred's name in the eyes of the law, so they sneak inside his office in the middle of the night and kidnap Mr. Bird. As they're leaving, the trio are noticed by Vandercave from his office where the backstabber is cleaning out the company safe. Sharon has found only one ticket to Rocco Poco in the bag and realizes that her boyfriend is about to double-cross her. Meanwhile, the wives take the feathered witness downtown in Pearl's seashell and crash right into the hanging tree, knocking it over. The dictabird tells a tale of an unsophisticated man who was caught up in a treacherous web of lies, and he sounds like a great storyteller.
Gather round, everyone.
Fred is deemed innocent. However, when they return home, they find Pearl tied up and a ransom slab saying to bring the bird to the quarry. Once Fred has untied Dino, he goes down to Slade and Company with Barney to deliver the dictabird, who should have signed with Disney instead. Vandercave has Pebbles and Bam Bam bound in a cart on the company's new conveyor belt and turns on his machine. He tries to flee with the witness, but Mr. Bird just bites his hand and gets away while Fred and Barney try to save the kids. They just end up breaking the lever, so the latter uses a catapult to launch himself towards the kids while Fred tries to save the witness. Vandercave is armed with a prehistoric sling pistol thing, but is knocked out by Sharon, who wanted her revenge and kinda likes Fred. When he recovers, Vandercave tries to flee, but Twinkletoes takes out his bowling skills and strikes the fleeing villain with a large rock. Barney tries to save the kids but gets distracted by Bam Bam calling him dad that he's knocked unconscious by the machine. Fred launches a boulder from the catapult, and luckily Barney wakes up because he gets the kids out of the way just before it hits. The machine is destroyed and oozes out a thick gray substance that mixes with water and falls right on top of Vandercave. The police arrive and learn everything that happened from the bird's beak, while the only one arrested after the whole scheme is Sharon Stone. Fred assures her that they'll let her off easy when suddenly Mr. Slade arrives, hooting and hollering. He isn't angry but is so impressed at the substance that solidified Vandercave that he names it after his daughter Concretia. The Stone Age is officially over and Fred is made president of their new concrete division, but he already has everything he could ever want. He turns down the generous offer and just asks for his old job back as a Bronto crane operator before walking away with his family and friends. When asking his friend for a small loan, however, a furious Barney chases him and the movie zooms out into the drive-in theater. Just like the cartoon, the Flintstones leave and on their way home Fred orders some massive Brontosaurus ribs that overturn the car. The final scene shows Babypuss leaping through the window again, but this time locks Fred out of his own home. And the movie ends.